Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the Warhammer notes for patch 1.1. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. As you can see, it's a different locale from a lot of my videos. My PC died early this week, and I've been researching some new parts, and I've got them ordered, and they'll be here soon. So I should be able to bring back the Warhammer content consistently starting next week. I know I had a vacation a few weeks ago and a ton of school stuff, and then my computer broke. So I fell a little behind on the Warhammer content, so I appreciate you sticking with me. I am going to have some fresh content daily coming up as soon as I get that new PC starting next week, so stay tuned for that. Okay, but right now, I'm just filming on this old laptop. I did manage to get my, my external mic hooked up. I'm using just the crappy whatever camera on the computer, so but that doesn't matter, who cares. It's just a picture of me outside here. But yeah, I just decided I'd take it outside because why not? It's fun. We're on a laptop. We'll change the locale. But let's get to the real heart of the issue here. Let's talk about 1.1. Now, I think that the patch in and of itself is okay. It's kind of the TLDR. I think they did some good things. The bigger problem in my mind is the direction and the attitude they're taking with Warhammer 2 or Warhammer 3 rather than Warhammer 1 and 2. And that's a little more worrying in my mind. I talked about this in a previous video. But you know, one of the big issues that's sort of maybe not fully unique to Warhammer 3, but is certainly unusual, is that the step from Warhammer 2 to Warhammer 3 without Immortal Empires, without Mortal Empires, feels like a downgrade in many senses, right? So it doesn't even feel like DLC in the sense of like buying the third game. It feels like you're actually literally losing all of your DLC. And I can't think of a lot of other situations where that happens. I know there probably are some. But what I mean by that is if you've been a faithful fan the entire time and bought a lot of the DLC, if not all of the DLC, and you've been playing the game for years, you know, however many factions there are, or faction leaders, whatever, that you can think of. There's probably like at least 40 or 50 or something like that. If you have all of that, and you want to play Warhammer 3, all of a sudden, you can't play that anymore. You can't play Skaven and all of those, you know, lords that, you know, Ikitclaw and stuff like that, that you have the DLC to, right? You can't play the High Elves and all that stuff. So in many ways, like, you're losing content that you already had in Warhammer 2, because they don't have the Immortal Empires, and that feels really bad. If you've dropped however much money, hundreds of dollars, on Warhammer 1, Warhammer 2, and all the DLC, then it feels like you're actually losing money. It's like, yes, you can go back and play Warhammer 2, but then if you do that, then you don't have access to the Warhammer 3 stuff, right? So then it feels like you wasted $60 there to some extent. Now, I get it, you know, they're technically different games, different titles, but let's be real. Like, they all build on each other. It's basically DLC to get Warhammer 3, right? Like, that's how people would want it, ideally, is to say, okay, I still have access to all of my previous DLC and, you know, FLC or whatever, and I just want to be able to access these new things. But you don't have that yet. So that's a very unique quandary, I think, that feels really bad, I think, for a lot of people. And they don't seem to care. Like, as far as I can tell, they do not care. Like, they have a different philosophy about what that is. They are classifying Immortal Empires or Mortal Empires or whatever. They're classifying that as new content. Like, this is some kind of new content coming up, kind of like a blood pack or something like that. It's like, no. It's fundamentally very different because it's old content brought to this new system. So yes, in a sense, a lot of it needs to be new because they're going to have to redo all of the towns, right? And I understand it takes a lot of work, right? They're going to have to redo all the towns for all the new maps. They're going to have to balance, you know, some of the other factions and things like that. But I think the big one is they're going to have to redo all the towns, you know, to account for, you know, the basically walled minor settlement, the minor settlement defenses, and then also the bigger towns to make it, you know, 3 or 4 sides in some cases, and you've got the supplies, and where you're going to be able to place your towers and your barricades and all that stuff. Like, I get it, it's a lot of work. But you know what? The time between Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2 was 1 year. I looked this up in a previous video. It was literally 1 year. So if we go and look at they might have the DLC schedule on here. But it was 1 year. And yes, that was fast. But just think about how fast they were able to add these new extra things and how much they were able to, new lords, and how fast they came up with Mortal Empires. Like, I think this will have the timeline here. Yeah, here we go. That's what I'm looking for. Now, this is the free LC. So they started adding quite a bit of free LC, different lords, right? So they added, 3 in 2016 and then 3 in 2017. And then the original Warhammer came out in 2016, right? So we won't count Warriors of Chaos, right? But, and I don't even know if this includes Warhammer 2. Yeah, I think this is just for Warhammer 1. So if we pulled up Warhammer 2, I won't pull up all the details here and bore you with that. Or maybe I will. Maybe I will bore you with it. Let's pull up Warhammer 2 here and just kind of show you if they have the, yeah. Here we go. So the game released, I think it was September, right? And then down here, Mortal Empires was October, 1 month in. Maybe even less than a month, they had Mortal Empires, right? And that was the first time they'd done that. So they were able to combine both of the maps and all, present all of the original Legendary Lords. And it took a while to, add a bunch of new features to, like, add some rights or some other systems to kind of spruce up some of the old factions, which they did through DLC over time. Okay. But my main point is they had it in a month. And the next game came out within a year, right? But how long has it been since Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3? Right? It's been, 5 years? Basically, between those. And it's like, I get it, like, on release, I like how they have released the factions, right? Because they're trying to give us, effectively, whatever the number is, 4 different Chaos factions, and you got, like, Kislev, Ogres, Cathay. So you've got, and then the Greater Demon guy. So you've got 8 factions on release. That's good. So I think the Warhammer 3, as far as the release schedule, that's good. But the thing is, at this point, you have so many backlogged DLC lords and factions and things like that it dwarfs what's available in Warhammer 3, right? You've got whatever the number is, 40 or 50, legendary lords you can play in Warhammer 2 right now, and then you've got, 12 or something in Warhammer 3. It's like, that's cool, but they've had 5 years to work on this. 5 years to work on this translation, right? And this is your biggest money game by far. I'm pretty sure. I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure it blows away all of the historical titles. Maybe Three Kingdoms initially was pretty, it may have sold a lot in China or something. I don't know. But it makes a lot of money for the company. So this should be your top priority. Your little standalone games, your British Isles and your whatever, Ancient Greece, all these little standalone titles and things like that. That's cool, but that's not going to make you nearly as much money potentially as Warhammer 2 can do it. And, they could have done so much more also with branding, and they've tried to team up with the tabletop. They could have had merch. They could have done a lot to make more money off of this, both companies. But anyways, the main thing is this is a huge, intellectual property and big-time potential to make a lot of money. So this should be your number one priority. If you're trying to make money right now, as Creative Assembly, this has to be your top priority. But it feels like it's not, right? Both in what's released and the way that this blog reads, which I am going to get to, but I'm just setting the preface because I think a lot of the problem and a lot of what people are still not going to be happy about is what's not said here rather than what's actually said. I haven't watched other reviews, but this is the sense that I get, because it's kind of what I feel as well. I think the game, for the most part, is fine. Like, I personally don't mind the rifts. You know, a lot of people had complained about, you know, going into the rifts and all that stuff. My thing is, like, you just don't do it. Just treat it like it's a sandbox game, and just don't do the rifts, right? Like, it's cool to fix it, but I think you can still play it without going into the Chaos Realms and things like that. Or there are mods where you can just disable the rifts and things like that, right? And some people might say, well, I don't want to play an unmodded version of the game. It's like, okay, fine, but like, there is a solution there, and I think if you play it without the rifts, without the Chaos Realms, it's fine. But speaking of the Chaos Realms in general, and then we'll get into the actual notes here. I just want to set the backdrop for what I think are the core problems of the game, and then we'll see if they've released it. So, Mortal Empires, like, no date in sight. They're not even saying, hey, like, a quarter. Like, hey, we're going to have this, like, over the summer, or third quarter, or something like that. And that's extremely worrisome. We'll get into that, you know, more in a second. The other one that's really big is obviously, like, the rifts and the linear gameplay that basically they've added. So they've kind of moved away from the sandbox. They have a much more integrated sort of storyline, but it gets it has less replayability, I think, is the main thing that a lot of people complain about, because you're basically forced to go in and do these Chaos Realms, and I think that style of gameplay plays out very similarly. Like, there might be some minor variations, but you're not interacting with different factions. There aren't different spaces you can try to conquer, or different alliances and things like that that you can do with these Chaos Realms. You just go through the hoops, you do the quest battle, and that's it. And that's really not what Total War is all about. I mean, they may have looked at the success of, you know, other more narrative-driven games. Now, I don't know how long they've actually been working on this, or like the narrative or whatever. But maybe they thought they wanted to be more narrative-oriented, because some games like Final Fantasy and, you know, some other, you know, successful RPGs and MMORPGs and stuff like that, they are very narrative-driven, and people tend to really like narratives if they're well done. But those games, it's just a completely different design than, like, Warhammer and what people are looking for. What people are looking for in a grand strategy game is replayability, I think. They want the sandbox. They want to be able to have a different experience every time they play it based on their strategic moves. Maybe one time they play it, they ally with a certain group, and then they, you know, maybe go in a different direction. Maybe they expand off to the east and get into some different conflicts. Get into some real-time battles that are going to be a bit different, right? Like, that's the beauty of Total War, you know, at least like Mortal Empires, is that a lot of campaigns, there are different ways you can go, and some of the most fun Legendary Lords and fun campaigns are ones where you have a bunch of choices, like Claw. I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorites. I know there are a lot of other content creators that also like that. And a big part of it is he starts off in the middle of the map. He has very interesting mechanics, interesting units. You can go for different kinds of strategies with him. You can expand in different directions. You can build different units. You can have different combat styles. He's extremely versatile, and I think that's what keeps it fun. And the politics are very unstable, right? Like, some people might go to war with you. Some people might attack you or not attack you, depending on his position. So that's a very well-done faction. And that's what people want. They want that sandbox. They want that replayability. Like, the story's cool, but after somebody does it a couple of times, they just don't want to go in there and do that quest battle again, I think. And I get it. They probably spent a lot of their budget developing the assets for that, right? Developing the quest battles, balancing it, getting all the graphics right, like, thinking about how to envision these chaotic worlds. And that's cool. I mean, there's very little for them to go on, right? As far as, like, the handbooks and stuff like that for, you know, Cathay, ogres, these chaos kingdoms. There's just not a lot from Games Workshop about these characters. So I get it. They had to do a lot of this world creation, and they don't usually have to do that as a company, right? With their historical titles, there's a lot of information out there about these different historical periods. They don't have to create those worlds in a very robust way, right? Like, there's already a really good blueprint. And the same thing for Warhammer 1 and most of Warhammer 2, you know, they had a blueprint about these factions. They have army handbooks. There's a lot of lore about them. Now, I thought that they did an okay job with Vampire Coast, which is not super fleshed out, Tomb Kings, which I don't remember how fleshed out they are, but they did an okay job with those. Those are some of the least popular factions, but nevertheless, I think that they're all right. So I get it. Like, they had to create a lot of stuff from scratch, but again, they've had 5 years to do this, and this should have been a top priority. So I don't mind it taking that long if it's a good product, but just the philosophy of where they're trying to go with this to make it more linear is problematic, because that seems to me like they don't understand the audience for this. Like, somehow they've lost sight of what's worked for the organization, you know, for the last 15 years. And maybe, like I said, maybe they're just trying something out in a new direction, but to me it feels like they're doubling down on it. And like I said, that's just not what a lot of people want. They don't want the linear gameplay in a title like this. Like, it's cool, you know, once or twice. So I think that, you know, but they're coming at it not saying, look, big picture-wise, we understand that maybe we made a mistake and this is too linear. They aren't talking about big systems. They aren't saying, okay, we really want to recommit to going back to sandbox. We are making Immortal Empires a top priority because we know you guys want the versatility. We know you want to be able to use your previous DLC. They aren't doing that. They're talking about small-scale stuff. Like, they're like, okay, we're taking away some of the debuffs that you get in the Chaos Realms, and we're doing this and that. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you balance it, I think, personally. I just think a lot of people don't want it. And I feel kind of bad, because it's like, I know it seems like they put a lot of work into it, and that's what they want, but they just didn't read the genre correctly. They didn't read the audience correctly. That's not what people want. You could have the most balanced, amazing, you know, linear gameplay in the Chaos Realms. You could do all kinds of cool, fun stuff with the rifts. Like, there's some way that you could balance this and make it really fun, and people would still not want to do it. It's not about the balance in the long run. It's much bigger than that. It's a bigger picture, just misreading the genre. People want replayability for that. If they want more, you know, kind of linear gameplay, there are a lot more games out there that can do that for them. So, anyways, those are the two biggest things for me, is not reading the room, not understanding that people want the sandbox, people want the replayability. That's why they play Total War. That's why, you know, for so many hours and are so loyal to the brand, is because of how many, especially Total War Warhammer, because there are so many variables. There is so much more replayability, I think, in something like Total War Warhammer when it's done well, than something like the historical titles, because there's so much more diversity in the factions, in the gameplay, in the different things you can do in this fantasy world that they just haven't been able to pull off in the physical world as much. So anyways, all that preamble out of the way, let's see what they have here. We're excited to bring you the 1.1 major game update. Okay. Triumphant return of 2 Dominion domination battlefields. Okay, again, I think the multiplayer community is relatively small. I could be wrong about that. Like, that's cool, but not the biggest of deals. Okay, as the first major release, we packaged tons of work into the bill and highlighted all the changes we made in those below. For those of you who wanted an abbreviated version, here's this. So they didn't say anything yet. Numerous crash fixes and optimization. Okay, great. That should have been done before, but at the same time, there's going to be weird stuff that happens on release. It happens to every game, just about. So I can understand there's going to be some performance stuff, whatever. Major overhaul of Realm of Chaos mechanics. Okay, cool. Again, small picture. They need to be focused on big picture. Much anticipated fix for the interaction between Everlasting Gift and Gift of Slaanesh. I think Slaanesh is really powerful, but it did get a lot of bad press because of that interaction. If they did actually just straight up fix it without many other nerfs, I think Slaanesh is going to be even more OP, which I like. I mean, a lot of people just don't understand the power of Slaanesh. I mean, it's right next to Nurgle. It's probably the most disrespected faction, or the least respected, because I think it requires, like, thinking outside the box and, like, really strong micro to make it work. Okay, supply lines, okay, sure. But, I mean, yeah, that's a thing, but supply lines are so much cheaper than they used to be. It's like, oh, you dismiss a lord, you're paying the extra 4% for them. Like, that is a thing, but it's also, it has been reduced from 15% down to 4%. So, I was able to work around it on Legendary, which is the only place where that could potentially matter, I think. But, sure, that's fine. It'll just make the game a bit easier. Numerous players blocking prologues, okay. One-on-one training montage, okay. Major adjustments to the demons. Okay, that's kind of cool. I think it was a fine faction. I talked about that before in the guide to the Demon Prince. We'll talk about that more when we get there, but I don't... We'll see what they do with it. I think it was relatively fine. It was just challenging for people to figure out how to do it correctly if you didn't watch a guide. Okay, unit responsiveness. More on this coming later. Okay, sure. I think it's fine, honestly. I know there have been videos where it's like, oh, you know, this unit of infantry is taking an additional quarter of a second to turn. It's like, okay. I mean, it depends on how much realism you want, right? Like, sometimes with, like, actual... you know, battalions in real life, it takes a second to turn also. People don't just stop on a dime and turn around immediately. But I get it. It can feel kind of bad. It never did in my games. I thought it was fine. I think you should be very heavily penalized if you're trying to disengage to kind of stop charge cycling from completely dominating the meta. But anyways, units have to brace to get charge reflection. Okay. I guess. I mean, like, those bracing kind of units, the spears and the halberds, have always been underpowered, I think, relative to high mobility, heavy charge units like cav and things like that. So I guess that's fine, but I was okay with those units being a bit stronger, just, again, to kind of nerf charging a bit. Okay, different balances, Dominion stuff, Domination stuff. Okay, sure. Detailed notes can be found below, including commentary from teams, individuals. Okay, blah, blah, blah. As an important reminder, this is only the first update for Total War Warhammer 3. There are still many, many years set aside to continue the growth and evolution of the game. That sounds bad to me, because I think people would assume that. I mean, I guess because they sort of abandoned Three Kingdoms and they abandoned some other ones. Why are we talking about years, though? Why aren't we talking about quarter to quarter here? This game just released. So, why aren't you saying there will be another update next quarter? Or in the fall? Like, it just seems to me like they're just not offering, like, realistic visibility. It's like, well, I would assume so, right? That there's going to be support for this for years because it makes you so much money. Like, there should be. There's still a lot of stuff you can do, right? But it seems like they're already just, like, casting off stuff far in the distance. That does not sound good to me. As far as, like, when we can expect more updates, and specifically Immortal Empires. So, including new features like Blood Pack, Immortal Empires. See, that's my problem, is they're lumping Immortal Empires in with the Blood Pack. Like, it's just some little extra feature, right? It's like, no, dude, this is accessing the content on this new platform that people have already paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars for. Like, I get that it's new-ish because you have to redo the towns primarily, but you should have been working on this for years. Like, just look at the data. Just how many people actually did Vortex campaign multiple times? Like, what are the amount of hours people logged in Vortex versus the amount of hours people logged in Mortal Empires? They have that data, or they should have that data. And if you looked at that at all, I would guarantee you it's something like 90% or more of the time somebody played this that's an avid Warhammer 2 player, right? Maybe somebody that has more than 300 hours or something in the game. So much of that is going to be on Mortal Empires. So they have to know that's what the audience wants, especially the hardcore audience that are the whales that are going to buy everything. You know, maybe you don't have to worry about the people that just try it for a few weeks and then they just move on to another game, right? But for the whales, for your dedicated audience, you know, you are denying them something that they've already paid for in the past. In my point of view, like, that's what it is. So they're classifying this as new content when in fact it's just lost content for the most part. Yes, they're going to add on, you know, some new stuff. They'll add End and Koresh, and they're going to add some new geography. Yes, I get that. But again, a large portion of that, all of the lords and, you know, probably 70% of the geography was already there in Warhammer. So it's like calling it new when it's just like 30% of like the factions and the landmass are new and 70% is old is a little disingenuous, in my opinion. At least they need to, like, bare minimum turn on the ability to play other factions and lords that are on the Warhammer 3 map if you own the DLC and the faction for it. I know I've seen other people talking about they are really thinking about coming down hard with a hammer on any mods that allow you to play as something like Karl Franz or Snitch or Manfred, like these legendary lords that are on the map that are already legendary lords you could have bought. And they're saying, oh, well, that's basically pirating that content. It's like, dude, people have already bought that content and you're taking it away from them. Like, that's not pirating. You're pirating from us. I don't know. Like, to me, that just feels really weird. That, like, I've had Warhammer 1 for 5 years, and now if I want to play a Karl Franz campaign in the Warhammer 3, atmosphere, I can't. So, I don't know. It feels like they need to at least enable that. Like, ASAP, right now, why can't you do that? Would be, my question. You already have the towns. The assets are literally already there. Right? Like, you have Altdorf, you have, all of those towns, because you can siege them and fight against them right now. So why the hell can't you play as Karl Franz or Manfred or Snitch? Like, there's not even an excuse for that. It's already on the map. You already have the towns done. Maybe there's some balancing stuff that you could do, but whatever. Just put it out there and let people play it. So I don't know. To me, there's no excuse for that. And really, I think that the Immortal Empires themselves, that needs to be out within 1 or 2 quarters with the big map. Like, they have to know that's what people want. So again, they're counting it in the same thing as Redacted. Everybody knows that's Chaos Dwarves. Blood Pack. I don't understand why Blood Pack's taking this long either. I just don't care about the Blood Pack as much. But anyways, okay. So that's really bad, in my opinion. Okay, so ongoing fixes, auto-resolve. It's annoying, but it's manageable, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, if they dialed it back a little bit, okay, but you should have to fight the fights to get the best results, right? Now, some situations might be really out of whack, but you should take a penalty for auto-resolving it, because they don't know how you're going to fight. They don't know if you're going to micro that exactly perfectly, or how you're going to use your magic, or whatever. So I think especially on higher difficulties, on Legendary or whatever, you should have to fight a lot of your battles. Now, keep in mind, you can also just go to like 4X, right? If it really is just a steamroll where you just right-click and you just kill everybody, then just 4X it. So yes, it is annoying sometimes. I get that. But especially in towns where they don't know how you're going to, deploy your barricades, defend the towers and the specific checkpoints and things like that. They just don't know how you're going to do that. It's hard to put that into a calculator and figure that out. So, anyways, I think it's fine. It's not as bad as people say, but it would be nice if they tweaked a little bit. Siege battles. What's wrong with siege battles? I think they're fine. I think they're great. I mean, honestly, Siege and the secondary towns, I think, are even better, like way better than Warhammer 2. So I think that's a real highlight, in my opinion. I think it's really fun to fight a lot of those battles. Unit movement is okay. Syncing animations is whatever. Like, I mean, it matters. Like, if people want to zoom in and do the cinematic stuff, 4K on the battles, but it's like, take care of this shit first. Like, don't even talk about this stuff down here until Immortal Empires is available and people can play the DLC that they've had for years that they paid hundreds of dollars for. That is the main thing. If you don't see something included in today's build, know that there are a variety of fixes, investigations, and projects still being worked on so they can be included in the game. Okay, we're doing stuff. Many of these are inspired by your discussions in the community, so continue to hold those discussions. Okay, keep working with you to paint a picture of what you'd like to see in Total War Warhammer 3 and continue. You know what the F people want, or you should know. Look at the stats. I mean, I know I'm a broken record here, but they're acting like they're still in these ongoing discussions. Oh, would you like to see this? Would you like to see that? Everybody wants Mortal Empires. Like, you should know that. Look at the statistics of your own game, and 100% you will see that. Like, there's YouTubers complaining about, all of these different things, but I will guarantee you people would just get over the vast majority of that stuff if they just had Mortal Empires and play it. Like, Warhammer 2 had all kinds of problems, too, potentially, for all the, haters out there that you could just pick at if you wanted to. But a lot of people still played it because you had all that variety, because you had the sandbox. And that was unique in many ways to a lot of other games. And that's why you would play this over something like, I don't know, Elden Ring or Lost Ark or Final Fantasy 14 or like a bunch of other, you know, popular games out there. That's what makes Total War unique, is that it's in effect a blend of grand strategy and real-time strategy, and that you have that sandbox feature kind of available. Okay, so performance stuff, I'm not really going to go into that. They made that better, great. Gameplay mechanics, corrupted traits are removed. Okay, more stuff with that. It's whatever, sure. Gift of Slaanesh, okay. Again, makes Slaanesh really strong, but that's fine. Supply lines, sure. Okay, fixed a few different things. Auto-resolve, okay. Campaign prologue, whatever. Realm of Chaos, okay, so you get the reduced effect of negative traits. Okay, so it's reduced. Why do you even have negative traits? Like, it's already a real problem that you have to invest so much time to go get these souls anyways. Like, that's enough of a penalty. You can get attacked by everybody, especially on Legendary, while your Legendary Lord is there. So you have to turtle up in your town anyways the whole time if you try to, you know, go for those victory conditions. Again, I just skip it and just go for total domination. But if you're trying to do, you know, the linear gameplay, just get rid of negative traits. Like, they're not interesting. They don't add anything fun. You're already heavily penalized. Just get rid of it. So they basically are getting rid of it. Once you get the soul and you complete the survival battle, you get rid of it. So I don't know. Okay, if you kill the enemy Legendary Lord, they get rid of all their souls. Okay, so this just makes it easier if you're behind in the souls race. I think that's fine. And you can, you know, build a tier 3 building to stop rifts from spawning. I think that's a little out of the way. I think it should be a tier 2 building. It's like the tier 2 public order building should be able to get rid of those, or just something like that. Like a tier 3 specialized building that has no other function, that's usually like 4,000 gold, other than like, you know, stopping Skaven in many. I mean, some factions get a little bit more benefit out of it, but for the most part, you're having to go really far out of your way and use a valuable building slot in order to get rid of those rifts. So I think there just could be another way to balance that out. I mean, maybe make the rifts just like a portal, right? Like, why does it have to cause all that corruption? Why do there have to be armies that spawn out of it? Like, just make it a rift to the Chaos Realm, or to travel around the map. I think that's fine. Like, the bigger problem is the AI doesn't manage it well. So a lot of times they just get overrun because they'll just let their province go to 100% corruption, and then these armies will come out and start just, you know, knocking down some of their towns. It just, even being at the corruption level and putting that much pressure on them in terms of public order and all these other penalties is just really bad. Like, the AI just does not handle it very well at all. So that's the big problem. So just get rid of the corruption. Like, just, okay, you want to go to the Chaos Realms and do that thing every 15 turns or 30 turns or whatever, that's fine. You want to go teleport somewhere else on the map, you know, for a price, that's fine. I think maybe they should, like, attrition you or something if you do that. It feels like the teleportation is a little strong. I like it. I think it's fun to go to different locations on the map. How are we looking on time here? I don't want this to be, like, too long. Okay, it's okay for now. But yeah, we'll move along. But yeah, I just... I don't necessarily like that aspect. I like the travel. I like being able to opt into doing the Souls race if you want to. Like, maybe instead of, like, you lose the game, just, like, you get bonuses if you do the Souls. So, like, you can go do it if you want to, but you don't have to. I think that would be a much better way of trying to make it sandbox. Although, if the incentives are, like, too strong, then people are going to be, like, priced into doing it. So, completing a survival battle will now provide the winning faction with the following benefits. -5 or +5 corruption across all provinces, +8 control, +15 growth, +10% income. Okay, so that's a pretty big buff for you, but that could also be, like, pretty annoying to some extent. It depends, but, like, if all of these other factions are getting these souls, you know, every time that comes up, you're going to be getting that from, like, 4 different factions probably. So that's really going to mess with your corruption levels and public order levels. All the other stuff just kind of helps out the faction that gets it, but this can be real. I mean, this can help you if you get it, but it can also be super annoying if other people get it and are constantly, like, causing corruption and public order problems in your provinces. So I wish they'd get rid of the corruption part and just do this, because then it just helps you, but doesn't necessarily make it annoying if the AI gets it and does it to you. Okay, additional adjustment. Okay, just whatever. Zinch, Nurgle, sure. Be'lakor gets some different things, so you can kill Be'lakor, I guess, and get bonuses. That's fine. I mean, you've already won the game at that point. It's fine. I mean, I guess they're trying to say you can still keep playing, you can still sandbox it. It's like, okay, but that's like 160 turns in. I would bet that the vast majority of players just kind of stop a campaign between like that 100 and 150 turn like max and just move on and play something else. Because that's really the most interesting part of a lot of campaigns. It's like the first 100 turns. Is you know, by the time you get 6 provinces like fully under control and you've got like 4 armies or something, like no one's gonna stop you. Like the game snowballs really hard if you get very far ahead. So that's always been sort of a problem with Total War games, is at a certain point, you know, you're so powerful that there just aren't any stakes. You know, if you lose your legendary lord or whatever, you're just gonna get them back in 5 turns. You know, just chill for a few turns. So I did like that about Horde factions, where you couldn't actually take properties, and there were a lot of stakes. If you lost your army, it was a very, very big deal, and you could still lose the game with like traditional Warriors of Chaos or Beastmen. You like literally could lose the game if like your 2 main armies died. So I like that, but apparently a lot of people didn't like traditional Horde gameplay, so they've tried to make it to where every faction can basically occupy quite a lot of stuff. Okay. Demons of Chaos. Now, I would have to go through and look at this in the game to see like what's up, but basically they're increasing the baseline power on the demon, so that's going to help you a ton in the early game. I think he's actually quite powerful in the early game if you do it correctly, right? If you get the Nurglings, if you get the Nurgle wings, the pestilent wings, which you get super early in the Nurgle tree, then you're incredibly strong early on, especially if you get to the dogs at tier 2. Watch my guide or watch my 5 or 6 episodes I have in a campaign. I'm gonna have to just restart the campaign, because that was when I was in the middle of releasing those. I went on vacation, and then I've just had the hiatus for a while, so we'll probably just refresh that and try out some of these new changes. But okay, they're changing a lot of this stuff. Again, I'm gonna have to look at this and see sort of what's up. We've increased the values of pre-dedication demonic progress offering bundles to keep them all balanced. What does that mean? The post-dedication offerings have also been buffed with some extra power as you dedicate yourself to the chosen god, including buffs to the god-specific recruitment ranks, agents, and lords. This should shorten the time it takes for your lords to reach exalted forms. Okay, so they're basically doubling down on committing to a specific god. I think that's the least interesting aspect. Like, this is a problem that I talked about. I do think it's a fun campaign. I do like the demons once you kind of solve it and figure out, like, which is a good path, which I think is Nurgle early and then all Khorne. I think Khorne is incredibly powerful. But a big issue is a lot of people in the comments and people have said on stream and things like that, that a really fun part of the Demon Prince is you should be able to go undivided. It should be about your versatility, right? It should be about being able to have a whole bunch of different kinds of demons with different kinds of buffs and different play styles. So it should be like almost like a Swiss Army knife of a faction. Like, it should actually be weaker. Like, if you commit to full-on Khorne, it should be weaker than real Khorne, right? So your strength, in theory, should be undivided. Like, they should really push you to go undivided, but this is pushing you to commit to a single god, and the single god is already incredibly powerful, right? Like, even taking a pit stop for Nurgle early on, and so you can get the switchable plagues. I got to full-on Khorne by like turn 40 or something, and once you get to committed, it's ridiculously powerful on legendary. You get a free army. Like, your legendary lord is absolutely free. So you can stack it with all tier 5 units if you want. You know, you can have like a 7,000 gold army that's free. That is insane. If you look at other factions, you know, it's really strong. If you get like 30% upkeep reduction on a lord or something like that. But this is 100% on your legendary lord. It's basically like having, 4 different lords have a 25% reduction. So it's just absolutely nutty, that alone. And then you also get, I think, free recruitment on them as well, including global recruitment. I'm pretty sure it's free. It's either free or very, very close to it, from what I remember. Including global, and you get global time reduction by 2. That might just be a Khorne thing, I can't remember. But you can just pull in all of these units like free across the map and have no upkeep on them. And you just get all sorts of other wacky buffs. Like I think it's like +8 infantry faction wide, +8 bonus versus infantry for all of your units faction wide. All of your other lords, I believe it's -25 recruitment and -25% upkeep. You get extra really good stats with those sets. I can't remember what the other bonuses are. I think it's like perfect vigor for like your tier 5 cavalry and some other units. I mean, it's just absolutely nuts, like the bonuses that you get for going god specific versus undivided. It's like, okay, you can recruit different demons, but you don't get anywhere near the same power level on those sets. It's really, that set is absolutely bonkers. And the other ones are very good too. They give you free armies as well. So all of them are like pretty good, but I think Khorne in particular, especially because of that +8 versus infantry for all units faction wide, including your garrisons, is just like absurdly powerful. And a main way that Khorne is balanced is because they have a really garbage economy. But with the Demon Prince, you can get like pretty decent economic buildings in your towns, and especially because it's free, your tier 5 faction, then they're just way overpowered and way too strong, in my opinion. Right? Like Khorne is limited. They have really strong units, but they have a garbage economy, so they just can't afford that many high tier units for a long time. Versus you can have like tremendous growth and free armies and all that other stuff. So anyways, I think it's just basically Khorne on steroids, right, whenever you're playing the Demon Prince. So I wish they would have, like, one fix to this that I think would have been helpful is whenever you commit to the Undivided God, then it just gives you across the board like -25% upkeep on all demons, and all of your towns transform into like an undivided town, and you can hire all demons at the appropriate level from one town. So tier 3, you could hire all the tier 3 Nurgle demons, all the tier 3 Tzeentch demons, all of that stuff. So give you that versatility. So be weaker, don't have the crazy stats, just give a little bit of the upkeep stuff that's going on, and just allow you to hire all of the demons from one town. I mean, maybe you could have different, maybe you still need different military buildings, maybe just your capital being able to hire them is too much, but just like have, 1 or 2 unified buildings, like, hey, here's an infantry line, hey, here's a cavalry line, hey, here's a monster line, or something like that, like a single entity monster line, and just allow you to hire the units from that. Because right now a big problem is if you go undivided, you still have to have a tier 5 town to hire tier 5 Nurgle. And if you want tier 5 Khorne, you have to have a tier 5 Khorne town. You want some tier 5 Tzeentch units, you gotta have a tier 5 Tzeentch town. And that's just very unrealistic, especially on Legendary, for people to do. So that's really my major gripe, is it's like, yeah, technically you've unlocked them, but you still have to get all these big ass towns, which takes forever to get that much growth a lot of times. So that's just one thing that I don't like, is I really wish that they made the Undivided a lot more accessible, a lot more fun, and a lot more balanced in respect to the gods. But they're doubling down on wanting you to do the gods. Like, look at this. What is this? Khorne, 25% buff to campaign movement range after you win a battle. What the hell? Like, Khorne doesn't need buffs. It's too strong. I like it. It's overpowered. But, like, you don't need that. Were people just not doing that? Were there so many people that just did not understand how powerful those sets are for a free army? I do not get it. It was already OP. Why are you doubling down? Nurgle. Added 20, Nurgle plus 20% Global replenishment bonus. So every single ward everywhere gets plus 20%. So they're going to have over, they're basically going to have 100% replenishment. I think the cap is like 50, but like every unit's going to full health every battle, which is, again, incredibly powerful. And Nurgle is just a super OP faction anyways. Just watch my other stuff if you don't believe me. Watch the Nurgle campaign, watch the guide. It's incredibly strong, despite all the bad press. The Slaanesh thing is garbage. That doesn't matter. The Tzeentch is okay, but that doesn't matter. So yeah, I mean, these two probably needed some kind of buff. I could see like buffing Slaanesh and Tzeentch, but you do not need to buff Khorne and Nurgle. You need to buff Undivided. Okay. The sets, increase leadership aura size, remove 10% glory gain. So what? This is Undivided stuff. Okay. Remove the 10% glory gain from the Undivided sets. That seems kind of bad. Gifts, left arm, increased. Okay, I'm not going to read all of these. We'll just have to see when we get in there. Sure. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, you just go Nurgle early, commit to Khorne, and you just get whatever the hell you get. It doesn't matter. Just equip whatever gives you the set. Okay, the only one of these that I think is a big deal is the wings, and they didn't nerf that. Like, the early Pestilent wings are a big deal, a very big deal for early combat. But other than that, I just really don't think most of these matter that much. No, it doesn't say it's lowering the damage on that, so. Okay, well, they just buffed the hell out of demons, so that's cool. I mean, if people were underperforming, I guess that's fine. They're just nerfing the absolute hell out of penumbral, like the shadow magic AP percentage. Okay, base damage from 72 to 36. Yeah, it does hurt a lot, right? And that is something that Slaanesh can do and did like take advantage of a lot. But like other magic is pretty good too. I mean, like they need to be nerfing like Nurgle magic, man. Again, I love Nurgle, but the freaking Fleshy Abundance is like turbo OP, and just their little stream for like what it costs, their little cheap wind spell is super strong as well. So it's like, I get it, this is incredibly strong. Maybe it was for multiplayer or something, but it's like there's a lot of other magic that's really good too. Unit responsiveness, okay, whatever. How much time do we have left? Okay, maybe just a little bit longer. Is it? Let me just see how dark it is. No, you can still see me. Okay, it's getting dark out here. Let me see. Let me turn on these lights real quick. Might help a little bit. I don't have a second monitor out here. I just have the laptop, so see how that looks. Okay, that's a little bright, but it's probably fine. Okay, faction stuff. All right, so again, like this is whatever. I mean, it's fine, but the bigger deal are those larger system things that I mentioned earlier. But we'll look at them real quick. Okay, Iron Blasters were a little on the strong side. I know that Ogre Kingdoms had a really high win rate in multiplayer. Sure, that's fine. Gorgers got really nerfed. AP damage is down to 50 from 70. Okay. I mean, Ogres are just OP. Like, what they should be looking at are those initial Bull Ogres, like, for their cost. I mean, just everything about the Ogres is really strong. But, like, the Bull Ogres for their cost are just, like, turbo strong. Like, very, very strong. So I'm surprised they did not hit the normal Ogres. Then the catapults are still really good. I don't know if it was a bug or what, but it looked like they had perfect vigor in my campaign when I was running around with that. So, okay, yeah, ogres are super strong. Ogre giants now count as a rare single entity for the sake of unit caps. Oh, they have that in multiplayer now, where you can only have so many rare units. It's a pretty good way to try to balance it out. Iron Blasters are more expensive. Okay. Gorgers and Iron Blasters control the meta. Sure. Again, this is like a super niche. Like, it's cool they're looking at that, but I really hope they're not spending too many resources on that. Like, it should be all hands on deck. Immortal Empires, or at least, again, playable Snitch, Carl Franz, all of the crew should be playable. Okay, buffing a few different things. Harmony effect, radius, okay. Sky junk ammo is up. Sky lantern, okay. I think they're fine. I mean, they do have a bad win rate in multiplayer, but I think Cathay is overall, like, they're fine. I don't think you need to change them too much. Their gun units their gunpowder units at tier 3 are pretty underwhelming. But that's just how gunpowder units work. So, you know, I wouldn't be upset if they gave them a little extra range or a little more damage or a better firing angle or something like that, but it's fine. Zinch, recharge delay, sure. Warp flame. Nerf and Zinch. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess. Oh, they got rid of magic resistance from Forsaken. I guess that doesn't matter that much because it only applies to spells. It doesn't apply to magical attacks anymore. So, fine. I don't think Zinch was that big of a deal. I know some people think they're like the best faction or one of the best factions. They're all right in my mind. They're kind of extreme. Like their pink horrors and exalted pink horrors are incredibly strong, and everything else is just kind of whatever. In my mind, like their magic's pretty strong in general, but they have a really weak front line. And I think their late game units are like they're okay. They're all right. Kislev, I think Kislev probably needs a lot of buffs, especially at the tier 3 level. They just feel kind of underwhelming in my mind. Okay, unit acceleration. Thank God, that's what we've always needed. Acceleration on the infantry. You just like get locked in combat. It's like at least give them movement speed or something. Like who cares about acceleration? Like you're not charge cycling with them. Light war sleds reduced. Really? Why? Those things are not that great. Okay, elemental bear. All right, that's tier 5, I think. So that's fine. Buffing that up a little bit. Little Grom. Increased range damage, okay. Increased AP, okay, a little more damage. Alright. I feel like they need a little bit more. Nurgle units are too slow, making them vulnerable to larger armies. Yeah, they're too slow, man. I mean, look. That's the only way they're even remotely balanced. Especially the Plague Bears. It's like, yeah, they're slow, dude, but their regeneration is absolutely absurd. And if they lock up with you in melee, you're not going to win. Right? Like, you have to kite them. You cannot just sit there and trade hits with them in melee combat because they're going to kill everybody. Like, they're balanced around plagues. Like, they're just going to suck in multiplayer. Like, that's just all there is to it. It was kind of the same thing with greenskins to some extent. Is they're balanced around their campaign mechanics. Right? Like, greenskins are balanced around the fact that you get a bunch of free armies. That's really strong, right? But you don't get that in multiplayer, right? Unless you just change the stats of all the units for multiplayer versus single player. That's a lot of work. But, yeah, I mean, they have to be weak units. If they were strong units, right, like if greenskins could go toe-to-toe with other high-tier units, you know, on a cost-for-cost even basis, they'd be turbo OP, right? Because you have that huge campaign mechanic. It's the same thing with Nurgle, right? Like, those plagues are incredibly powerful. Like, some of these units, you have to think, those plague bears have to be balanced around the fact that they could be getting 20% physical resist, right? The enemy could have minus 15% missile damage, minus whatever it is for melee attack. Like those plagues can put some huge modifiers on people. The fact that they could vanguard with some of those plagues, like they're balanced around the fact that they're probably going to have a plague on them, usually the plus 20% physical resist, and you know, the enemy might have a debuffing plague on them, right? If the Nurgle player knows what they're doing, and it's going to be a difficult fight. So it's like, I get it, people don't understand these things in terms of balancing, but a lot of people don't. But I don't know. I mean, I love Nurgle. I'm glad to see they're getting buffs, but you got to be really careful because they're already the strongest faction, in my estimation. Okay, so the Plague Bearers are going from 23 to 27. That's actually very, very significant. So you might get them a lot more now. With Kugath, you're probably still going to want to do the Nurglings early, but that certainly makes the Plague Bears a lot more attractive for other lords in the mid to late game. And even Kugath, eventually, when you're just like turbo rich and you're fighting tough fights, you might actually replace him. So the Exalted, the ammunition count's getting a little more ammo, okay, whatever. Death's Head, drones, probably not going to have a lot of those, but that's cool. They're going to 10 ammo. And Kugath himself is getting a lot more ammunition. That's actually really massive, because you can actually use quite a bit of that ammo. He's basically an artillery piece early on, so that's big. And then increase the healing rate of Nurgling infestation from 0.1, so they're doubling the healing on the Nurglings. Why are you doing that? They're already like the strongest pound for pound unit in the game, maybe with the Corn Dogs. Like, they're really, really good, extremely good, especially with Kugath. Like, those things go toe to toe with like tier 4 or tier 5 infantry with all the upgrades. Like, they're ridiculously powerful. So I don't know why they're buffing that up, but okay. Sure, I mean, I love Nurgle, but geez, that's way, way too strong. Like, the Kugath stuff is too much. This other stuff is kind of whatever. I mean, like, it's good, it's really good, but it's not like super game breaking. This is pretty game breaking. I mean, there is a regeneration cap on the Nurglings, but especially early game, like, that's nasty. Now they have absolutely no prayer of beating you in a sustained fight like a siege. Okay, Slaanesh, fixing several issues with charges, bracing, and impact damage. Okay, I guess that's fine. I don't know what they're doing with impact damage or charges. The bracing change will make it a lot stronger, because then unless they're braced, Slaanesh is not going to be hit with some of that stuff. Great, let's buff the dogs. Like, one of the most OP units in the game. Let's give them Strider with the technology. Okay. Happy with the state of Khorne, sure. I mean, Khorne is fine. Multiplayer, domination. I'm not going to go on that too much just because I don't play it. I just don't know. But, okay. Localization, sure. Known issue. Soft lock. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the last few minutes here, again, I think what they did for the most part is fine. Like, that's good. And they have come up with this patch in a fairly reasonable amount of time, right? It's 2 months. Like, could this have been faster? Sure. I get it. But, you know, again, it's what they're not saying. And it really, really worries me that they don't seem to think of this as a priority, that they're lumping it in with Blood Pack, that they haven't given us any ETA on when Immortal Empires is going to come about, or even being able to play as Franz or Manfred or whatever, you know, kind of the stopgap that they could be doing. They haven't mentioned that at all. So that's what really worries me. And I fear that a lot of content creators and a lot of players are just going to go back to Warhammer 2 at some point. I predicted this before, and I think I saw Legend of Total War playing Warhammer 2 earlier today or yesterday. I can't remember which day it was. But yeah, like, he's already doing that. And I think a lot of other content creators are either going to move on to other games, or they're just going to play Warhammer 2. And the longer they wait on this, the worse it's going to... just the more people they're going to lose. Because there will be some people that had, you know, played a lot of Warhammer 2, that enjoyed it, that are just going to go on and play something else, right? So I think that they have to understand they are bleeding money. They are bleeding goodwill with people. They are, you know, tarnishing the brand, you know, every day they wait to release Immortal Empires, or even any information about it. Like, the fact they haven't released any information or given an ETA, like, it really has me worried that it's going to be third quarter or beyond. Like, it's possible that that they're just not saying anything, but it's, you know, going to be released in June or July. I think that's a bad PR move. They need to understand that that's going to be important. But yeah, I am worried for it. But I will come back. You know, we'll definitely try out Slaanesh. We'll definitely do... we'll kind of restart and play around with the new Demon Prince stuff. That does look fun. I would still like to do, you know, maybe a few of the other campaigns and check it out. And, I mean, we might eventually go back to Warhammer 2 as well, and just try out some other factions we haven't played in a while. You guys just let me know what you think over time. I'll you know, do some polls, and I'll just kind of see what you guys want to see. But anyways, so we'll be back next week. We'll probably start off, like I said, with a revamped Slanesh. We'll do new Demons of Chaos. We'll check out all the changes there. And otherwise, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Thanks for sticking with me during this downtime. And I'll see you next time. Have a good day.